What? Okay. Okay, there it goes. Yeah. Man, how's the weather down there? Nice and warm?
Got cold.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was actually warm for a bit, but then it got down. It's getting down again to 50 to 60s in the morning.
Must be that northeastern that hit, dumping all that snow up north.
How about y'all? What about in where you're at?
It's too cold for me. Uh, Usually 30, 28 to 32 at night, and maybe mid 40s during the day. Sometimes it
Yeah,
might get up close to 50, but
that's cold, cold. I've seen snow
yeah.
one day in my life.
You've seen snow one day?
Yeah, one
Yeah,
day,
I didn't
only
see it.
one day.
I didn't see it till I was like 30. Well, no, I have to take that back. Real snow though, I didn't see till I was in my late 30s. All right,
Back
man.
from
So
the
we got
Canary Islands.
people coming in. Got 18 people in the house. Let's see. All the platforms look like they're connected. Garin Zina's in the house. Young brother down in Florida. Uh, been on the show a few times and puts out some pretty cool videos on YouTube as well. Yeah, man. I mean, what can you say about all this? I mean, I woke up this morning. Somebody sent me this Hunter Biden, what is it, Pedo Gate and Pizza, Comet Pizza, and all these. And I looked at like one, opened up one, and I'm seeing all this stuff going, holy crap. Like, this is out on the net. And then I saw a couple more that were more informative type things. And it just gets all these things going in my head. Like, you know, how much of it's a distraction? How much of it is important? How much of it is a narrative? And is it worth spending my time and looking at this stuff and validating some type of narrative within my mind? Or should I be focusing on myself? I don't know. It's like a combination of everything. It's like, even I just talked to a sister of mine, and we really haven't connected. It seems like, yeah, since about 12:12, everybody kind of went into their, like a turtle going into their turtle shell, and just doing themselves. And I don't know, man. And then you have this other stuff going on in the collective experience, on the headlines or whatever you want to call it. A lot of interesting things happening, though. There's a lot of interesting things happening, no doubt. So, what's your take on it? Where are you at with this the last few weeks?
Well, about your first point about Hunter Biden and the whole Pedogate thingy, I think it was like 4 months ago. If you look at Sky News Australia, the mainstream media in Australia put Biden child porn shock on the main headline. And
Yeah,
so I'm not saying to believe it or not. I'm not saying to put your attention or energy into it or not.
yeah,
What I'm saying, what I suggest doing is looking at it objectively. What is it?
yeah, yeah,
It's new information that's not new. It validates what people have said.
yeah,
If it's something that's validating what people have said in the past, is it propaganda? I don't
yeah,
know. But with the currents in the world of showing corruption and different things like that, I can guarantee that there's probably some truth in it.
Well, yeah, you've got. I read today, Myanmar. I don't know if that's how you say it, Myanmar. It's been taken over. Who else is there? There's been quite a few. Netherlands kind of step down a little bit. You got the stuff going on in Russia. You got Italy's PM step down. Uh, Merkel stepping down in Germany. I mean, so like, on that part, I love. We had David Icke on last month, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we talked about, he said, what you got to realize is information is not positive or negative. It's just information to allow you to kind of ingest as you move forward from where you're at. You know, I
And
think that I looked at these Hunter Biden pictures and a couple of videos, very explicit, and my head went to probably people probably get mad at me for saying this, but my head went to, wow, like that dude is all over the world now with this stuff. Very, you know what I mean? And how many of us have been in that situation or in a situation like that energetically that's similar? There's a lot of stories behind the stories, and I think everything that's coming out is actually everything has to come out. It's been coming out for all of us. It's been coming out for our families. You know, it's been coming. Our, you know, the false narratives are breaking down. I mean, and so why wouldn't it happen on the collective as well?
And
So
so to touch,
I guess what I'm trying to say is it's to me it's not. Maybe that's what it is. If I look to the collective to validate my experience, I think I might be missing the boat as opposed to looking at the collective as a projection of my own experience, you know, as evidence of, you know, it's actually a good thing that these things are coming out. Maybe it's another way to put it.
well, to bring it down to like the micro level and the individual experience level, if you want to look at it metaphorically, him being having his corruption shown, whether it be truthful or not, can almost be like you realizing what you, if you're relaying that and seeing how that could be something in your own life,
Yeah.
but not looking at his actions and saying, hey, that's something that I see people doing around here,
Yeah.
but looking at it like, hey, there's things that that person was doing, and that person then ended up realizing that that's not what they should be doing because they were
Yeah.
getting attention on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you keeping yourself in check if you have like bad habits or something. So I feel like, especially with being shut down because of coronavirus and being inside a lot, whether you're quarantined or not, wherever you're listening from, there's a lot of, it's almost like you have to make sure that you're not growing in ways that aren't healthy or beneficial, because we have so much time on our hands at the house now, in our comfort zones, in our little turtle shells, like you called it a moment ago, where we can, it's like we can expand but not expand in the right way. And it's about like pruning in a way. You got to prune yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's I don't know. There's just, you know, if say something came out 2 or 3 months ago, um, we're not even coming from the same perspective 3 months later. You know, I just had some jalapenos. Sorry about that. But what I'm saying is, it's like there's so many messages and streams of information, whatever we're looking at. You know, you can look at all these buses between 3 and 6 in the morning in D.C. pulling up, and all these military and cops there. And I just saw a video of a congressman with his hands behind his back. His hands were behind his back. You couldn't tell if he was handcuffed. And there was a younger woman with kind of her, like, you know, when a man and a woman walk together, she kind of had her arm through his arm, right? Like she was escorting him. And there was a U.S. Marshal in front of him. And, you know, I don't know what that is, you know, but I'm getting all these different messages as to.
What do you think it is?
Well, I mean, everything from that could be it, but then why is Mitch McConnell and somebody else walking right behind him and they're not walking that way, you know? I mean, I'm looking at what is this? What if it's true? What if all this is true? What if there's been tribunals going on and da 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 da? How's that going to affect me? Am I going to stand on a pedestal and say, I told you so, or they're the bad guys, or am I going to have compassion?
I feel like it's all a psychological operation, like both parts of it, like every single part of it. Because if you look at the human brain, if there's, I think it's looking at it like a computer. If the conscious mind has a limited amount of processing power, if you want to call it that, it's around 60 bits, and the subconscious is about 11 million. And so if you fry a person's attention span with new things to condition them, new things to shock them, new things, new headlines, new this, new that. In the beginning of 2020, it was World War III in Iran, and then it was COVID, and then it was George Floyd, and a bunch of different things. After conditioning yourself to have such a broken attention span, it's almost like, what is real, like you were saying. And personally, I am not against or for the whole QAnon information. There's
You're
a
not
lot of
attached.
spiritual people that
Yeah.
don't necessarily agree with everything that they say, or other people that follow it cultishly.
Yeah.
I think there's truth and I think there's falseness.
Yeah.
I feel like in no way is something going to happen and dominoes are going to fall over and the
Yeah.
entire paradigm of our current world global technocrat system, in no way is it going to change, because it's technology and globalism is a way that countries that have, if you what the media calls nationalist views,
Mm-hmm.
it's a way that they can erode at conservative qualities and create more people that go like this all day and are just idiots. And so what is happening in DC? I don't know. I'm not a person that should be asked that, but I can tell you one thing: it's a progression of further conditioning to prepare us for whether it be a fucking fake alien invasion
Yeah.
or some crazy shit down the line.
Look, I'm with you. There's a part of me that says, wow, that would be a great story. White hats in the government and everything's turning around. But there's another part of me that says, wait a minute, what has been going on for hundreds of years? What has been going on since, let's just go back 1,000 years? The monarchy that's in place in the UK, they started then. You got the Vatican, you always have this suggestive programming. And that suggestive programming um, is intended to then come on to us, and then based, because this is quantum, then based on how we judge it, basically how we view it is what occurs. My stepfather was in the CIA for 25 years. He had a very high level position. He was in 5 Oval Offices. He was very high level. He was actually in Vietnam for about 10 years, director of a pretty prominent program over there. But I remember him telling me and I didn't understand it. I remember telling him when I was about 15 or 16, he would tell me, I went to work with him one day and he said, there's 13 families that own the world. Now, if that was common knowledge to somebody even at that level in what we know is a very highly compartmentalized organization, then how many people knew, and was there already a resistance to that, kind of thing? I mean, there's so many stories, and that's why, I really like what you said, because the bottom line is, no matter what's presented to us, which in reality is by us at some level, but no matter what's presented to us, there's one thing that we have not stayed true to throughout history, and that is to thine own self be true, to explore the supernatural abilities and the eternal soul and all of its attributes that we have in this physicality. But I do think that there's something bigger than all of us, bigger than Q, bigger than Trump, bigger than Biden, bigger than any country. You can call it God or source or goddess or whatever you want. That is leveling the playing field by whatever means necessary, with the idea that with which it made itself in the image of, right, that what it created would find its power and then utilize that information and that expanded awareness to create a higher truth and a higher love and a new experience.
Absolutely. It's like a synthesizer in a way. It takes every single component of the great soup of existence or the universe, and it creates a space and a purpose and a almost like a faculty or a aperture through which every single person kind of adds to the giant collective Soup. But to touch on what you said about the 13 families, I don't really talk about that type of stuff on my YouTube channel as much, but I do want to address something right now.
Yeah.
In the ancient myth of Atlantis, the Freemasons believe that it was the first place that democracy was established on the planet. The Congressman Ignatius Donnelly in the 1800s, he wrote a book called Atlantis, and he said that Plato spoke to Solon, which was a Greek statesman, and Solon heard from an Egyptian priest that it was due to some great cataclysm and there was a loss of that. And so the secret societies that trickle down throughout all time pretty much have the belief that the human soul is in a fallen state. And they believe that they can bring that back up to illumination, as they call it. And from that belief or ideology, we can kind of see the groundworks for the collective action of what's been the setting up of our U.S. government. It was created by Freemasons. All the other governments, and I'm not saying it's specifically a group's fault, but it's an ideology of it's believing that humans need some form of authority in a way outside of themselves to conduct morals, ethics, and obviously you have to have compassion and all those different things. But it's people that essentially don't want to have their right to their own peoplehood, and it's like saying, hey, the rest of you people are chattel, because legally people are chattel, and that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But so with those components forming our current systems, we can look at a person called Klaus Schwab, which is the leader of the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is 160 countries, 1,000+ billion-dollar corporations, and they're creating something called the Great Reset. You said, I wonder what the people were doing in the past that were resisting all that stuff that was happening, that was leading to the forming of this. Well, I personally believe, and I don't know if it's right or not, that we've had resets, whether floods or great fires or things that have utterly killed a lot of people and created mass amnesia or taken away the memory. And from that, we can see where we are now, which is almost like a trance from the second we wake up after being birthed.
Yeah. No, there's, it's like what you said. I mean, first of all, I think there could be a pretty good argument that, and I'm talking a very high percentile, call it 98, 99, whatever, that people go out and do, like they believe in what they're doing, whatever it is. You get two sides on a war. Who's to say who's right or wrong?
You got three sides.
Three sides, you're right. So, and then what you said about the resets, I really believe that. Because if we look at everything as energy, what difference does it make as to what the story is? Was it a great flood? Was it a nuke? Was it a financial reset? Was it a worldwide epidemic? What a pandemic? I mean, it's energy. But I think the important thing is, at this point, just like we all learned that we had to kind of clean up the traumas of our past, that we had to come to terms and come to grips and forgive ourselves and forgive others and all this stuff to further illuminate our soul and to expand. These same things, these stories, to me, there is relevance to it. No doubt. Lemuria, Atlantis, Egypt, so on, Sumerians, galactic lineages. I mean, but the bottom line is, why? Why has all this been orchestrated? And the thing that I come back to, this came in a download a couple of days ago, which it wasn't new to me, but it was just brought to me for me to look at again, which was that this species is a universally seeded species. We are souls that have chose to incarnate in these bodies, which on one hand looks like a physical experience, but on the other hand, it's the same substance as what our higher self is, what are these non-physical things are, and that we have the ability to connect to higher levels of consciousness, every single one of us, and we do it consciously and unconsciously, and that those who may have imposed a level of control upon us don't have that ability. So everything has been designed to keep us from tapping in to our higher aspects, and then as a result creating a physical manifestation of transformation. And so on one hand you look at it and go, oh, they're trying to keep us from ourselves, but on the other hand, maybe from a certain perspective, they're playing the role of the catalyst to work in conjunction and cooperation with us to take it to the next level. I mean, it's mind-blowing, it's fascinating, it's exciting to me. And personally, I'm not going to 500 spaceships land. I'm not jumping on. You know, some savior-based thing comes out. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying, after all this time and all these incarnations and these memories and whatever transmission and downloads, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to thine own self be true. I'm going to respect and honor and revere and love myself as that which has been made in the image of, rather than go jump in somebody's box or basket.
It's like,
Be careful.
What you were saying, to the point that you were saying about their catalyst. What happens when you have a chessboard and two people playing?
Yeah.
They make each other better. It's not one person playing for themselves, it's playing for each other.
Yeah.
And so about what you said as well about the resets being just energy resets, and somebody commented that there's a great purge at the end of every cycle or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you look in Alaska, the people that dig for coal, there's a literal 1,000-foot layer of permafrost up there, and under that they found 300-foot tall trees under 1,000 feet of frozen ice. And that's one example of many, many, many. And whether that happened or not, I don't know. But what that means is that I kind of view Earth as like a pressure cooker, where if there's not shadow integration on the individual, social, collective, macro level, Earth has shaken many civilizations off her back, and she's not afraid to do so again. And because of that, because of the illumination and sanctification of the human soul as a component in the evolution of everything, because if an apple tree apples, the universe peoples. It's like we're every single part of evolution, if you believe in evolution or whatever you believe in, came to this point for us to be here right now. And if we can't accept ourselves, if we can't, Alan Watts said something really wise one time. He said, psychologically, if you accept yourself wholly, you do what the Buddha did in enlightenment. And so if you can accept yourself, not your experiences, but yourself,
right,
you're doing psychologically what the Buddha did. And I think that's a really amazing thing, because it's really difficult to accept yourself in a world of lies, because then most of the time you're lying to yourself, and that's a difficulty.
Yeah, and I think that I'm getting chills. And I mentioned this on a previous show. This happened 2 nights ago when Morgan and I connected, and I started having some even more deeper microscopic clarity. But basically, I would describe it in metaphoric terms, that my higher self came in and said, as if it's touching my body and saying, do you realize that I am you? Even though this is, in this field, and let's say the field is my own oversoul, which is just me and my aspects, right? That everything is contained in here. Why do you look up here and say, higher self, will you appear to me? So he was basically going, I am you, you are me. And this is where we've come. We've come to this point now where there's an integration at all levels, masculine, feminine, higher self, human self, and everything that goes with it. And basically, that was what was being said to me, is what you're saying. In other words, do you accept this? do you accept that you are actually this, all of this contained within this, what seems to be a physical body, but is no different than the non-physicality of you that you can't see. And so then it had me starting to kind of chant, I am my higher self. I am my higher self. And then it went on to explain to me how we've programmed ourselves based on what's been presented to us. I'm too skinny, I'm too fat, I'm too slow, I'm too, uneducated, whatever the case is, that this was programming us, and that we're this close to being able to break through the only real veil there is, which is the veil that lies between our eyes looking at ourselves. To your point.
It's almost like we need to wash the doors of perception.
Yeah.
Because I heard a quote one time where if you don't process your traumas, you see the world through the lenses of your traumas or something like that.
Absolutely.
And it's true. And I know you know it's true.
Absolutely.
And
traumas, labels, roles.
Yeah.
Situations where we've been victimized, situations where we victimized. And I think the other thing that's kind of important is as the stories start to fade in terms of their influence on us, we will start to look at everything more so as energy. So if I don't want to use you or me, but somebody rapes somebody physically, okay? If you take the literal act out of it and look at the energy, it's still what it is. But that same energy can be displayed. Let's say somebody else, the grandmother dies or something happens, and they go in and steal all the estate. That's kind of raping whoever was beneficial to it. Now, I'm not saying they're the same thing at the literal level. What I'm trying to say is the energy is the same. So if I see somebody, for instance, that's raped somebody, and I say damnation to them, they're whatever, they're a piece of crap, I'm immediately creating a field of superiority within myself. So that's an imbalance. But the gift is, why am I feeling that way towards that which is outside of myself? Have I ever done that? Now, a lot of times we'll go, well, I've never literally done that, but have I ever raped somebody? Have I ever taken something from somebody? Have I ever done that? And I think at some level, you can call it emotional abuse, call it whatever, we all have,
And that's the victim perpetrator cycle that can only be ended through illumination or shadow integration or awareness. Because if you don't take a step back to get that perspective, if you want to call it that, whether it's the raping of resources of the land, the raping of the time that a person has, because in a sense, in our culture, I like how you even brought this up, because it's a really cool point. Our attention is raped by social media. If you really look at it like that, like all the shit that we see that we don't choose to see, just because we have feeds that are suggested to us by algorithms that know, hey, if you play this in a certain way, it's neurolinguistic programming to make this person a little bit more of this type of way. Boom. And so it's not necessarily that it's a choice to it. Okay, how do I put this? I want to put this right, because this is a touchy topic.
Take your time.
I see much choosing disempowerment and deliberate victimhood because people are desperate to be because people, especially spiritual people, or I don't even want to put a label on it, but people that know themselves are wanting to foster further connection with other people that know themselves. I see people degrade themselves frequently because they want connection, because they're lonely, because they're this, because they're that, all those different things. And it's almost like this is going to sound so weird, especially for people just getting on now. It's like we're raping ourselves in a way.
Yeah.
Like
you're right.
We're metaphorically taking and ripping part of our soul apart to be able to give ourselves a lesson that however many incarnations down the line, or however many decades, or whatever it is, the time factor, you get the lesson back. And I don't know what all that means, but what I think it means is we're all evolving collectively, and the only way we can evolve is to see what's there, accept what's there, but not accept it as law, accept it as, hey, this happened. It's a little smudge in our history. Let's evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said the big word too, disempowerment. So either we are not what we think we are, and something or someone outside of us, okay, has the ability to take our power away. Or we are what we think and know we are, and nothing can take our power away. What does that mean? That means that we give our power away. And I believe what's happening is we've reached this state of awareness where enough information's come in and everybody's been privy to enough, or soon will be, that we have a choice to make. And without getting into any of these issues, is that, that choice might be, am I going to wear a mask? Am I going to get a vaccine? Am I going to get a 9 to 5 job? Am I going to go to college? I mean, all these things are changing so that we can make what I see, and I've heard Morgan say it many, many times in the context of working with people, including me, one-on-one in sessions, and that is we're presented all this information to make a new choice. Because if we look at the pattern of our behavior and our experiences, we've made the same choice over and over and over and over.
The victim perpetrator cycle.
Exactly. What am I going to watch on TV? How much am I going to pay in taxes? How much am I going to pay at this restaurant for a bucket of milk? Or like everything, I'm with you about the two sides. And this came to me about 2 weeks ago. I talked about it. There's not two choices. There's three. It's not Trump Biden. It's not pro-vaccine and against vaccine. Whatever the duality is. There's three choices. To thine own self be true. What hurts my soul is not the path I want to take. And really, the only thing that seems to be
What you just said.
the only thing that seems to be an impediment to the growth of my soul is, if we just want to put one program out there that covers them all, is the fear of death.
I love the fear of death. You know why?
Yeah.
It gets people scuttling around doing things that they normally wouldn't do when they hear the idea of you only live once, and you start acting mad, and you see people doing things that they'll regret the next day.
Yeah.
And you said a second ago, you said there's not two choices, there's three, and it's about making the decision we want to make. But the thing that catches us, I feel like, is we make decisions we feel like we need to make.
Yeah.
And it's like on a survival level. And because of that, whatever definitions or perspectives or things a person has in their mind that tells them, hey, you need to do this right here, right now, not, hey, you could do this, it closes you in a box. And I read a book about decision making, and it frequently we make emotional based decisions solely on emotion and not any logic in or not in between. And because we rely on that emotion, it feels like we're trapped in and we have only one choice. And having no option to take a step back and observe, that's taking away your own choice, and that's disempowerment. And so it's about choosing. But I want to say one little thing, one last thing. So you mentioned vaccines.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say much other than, hey, over 180 people have already died from like the Pfizer and the Moderna one. Hey, if you want to put synthetic mRNA in your body that's literally altered DNA to alter your DNA, people say, well, that's been fact checked. If it's an mRNA vaccine, mRNA is it's the chemical level of DNA. It's not that it doesn't change your DNA. It's that it's like the genetic blueprint. And Yeah, if you can't add 1 + 1 and get 2, I don't know what's wrong with your math skills, people. But that's all I can say on that.
Well, think about it too. I mean, we were born in a natural state with a natural rhythm, so on. Natural remedies that were presented to us by nature, by the universal energy. I'm talking herbs and there's just why it's like God made something and then we thought we could make it better. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. So I kind of get, to me, that's a very short contemplation there. But God, I was going to, you were talking about something else and I just totally forgot. But that's okay.
Sorry
But
about that.
no, it's all good. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you about. So, yeah, okay. So you were saying how we think we need to make a choice, that it is emotional. And in my old life, over 30 years, my industry was both selling and then constructing. So I was very much daily in the sales arena, and I did a lot of sales training, and I took a lot of sales seminars and read a lot of sales books. And in my old profession, we would either go into someone's business or go into their home and present. And every single sales process that I was ever privy to, this was understood. The name of the game is to control the the field of choice. So you walk on a car lot and you walk up to me and you're, Garin, and you're 18, 19 years old. You're already driving a Mercedes, so I don't know why you're on my car lot. But you walk on the car lot. There's 10 different cars, 10 different styles. Each has 10 different colors, right? So that's like what a lot of options. But as soon as you walk up to me, I say, "What are you looking for?" "Oh, well, I'm looking for a two." No, I might say, "Are you looking for a two-seater or a four-seater?" "Well, I think a two." "Do you like blue or do you like red?" And immediately the field of choice starts to um, narrow, and then there's the infusion of urgency, emotion. Hey, well, if you don't get it today, or if you get it today, you get a free teddy bear with it, or whatever the case is. So I love what you said because it's very much uh, kind of an example of what we've all been given. It's like Stockholm syndrome, right?
That's Stockholm syndrome is the reason the victim perpetrator cycle isn't ended.
Yeah.
Boom. Not a mess.
Yeah.
This right here is my sales desk. I until 3 o'clock today, I was taking calls. So what you're saying applies 100%. It's not about making them to make a decision. It's about guiding them to the decision they already want to make. Because they're the person that came to you. It's not you going to them saying, "Hey, look at this, buy this shiny thing."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to reiterate what you're saying, when in my experience in sales, there were two schools of thought. One was by any means necessary get to sell. The other one was, and it's like our own lives. There's like a fine line. The other one was an idealistic solution, a resolution kind of thing for your client, and it's a great because if you think about it, everything that we're creating is a result of what we think about what we're seeing. So who's in charge of presenting to us what we're seeing? Now we go back to the first part of the show. Like, if you for this is me, I'm not pushing anybody, but if I have come too far to look at each side of an issue, a point of contention. And again, it could be a lot of different things, mask, anti-vax, Biden, Trump, whatever. But I've come too far to say that one over there is absolutely 100% right, and they're virtuous, and they have no propaganda, they have no psyops going, they have no deception going, they're totally transparent. Bullshit. Neither are. Neither one. So this is where we're at. And I keep going back to the same thing. Every single thing that you believe in will be taken away from you. Absolutely 100%. If your attachment to it and or resistance to the opposite is going to be immovable, the universe will move it. In order for you to find yourself, if necessary, every single thing will be taken away from you. Every belief system, every person, every single thing. And
Every
that,
emotion, every
yeah,
perspective, every thought, every ideal, every vision, every dream, every future, every single thing will force you into that dark room where you have to face yourself.
that's
And that's
it.
why I have this right here. Remind me about the fear of death. Hey, you're gonna die.
Morgan brought me one. It's a very small one upstairs, but I had it on my keychain. It fell off. But that's a that's and going back to this thing that happened. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. So we were talking about the higher self integrating into the human. Then you brought up the thing you said about the vaccinations. The Prior to this conversation with the higher self 2 nights ago, the first thing that had happened was when we put our hands together, Morgan started to channel, which is normal. And what she said was, you're being offered, the both of us being offered to merge with your light body, and that you have 10 more etheric bodies, right? And so on. But the key was, in this case, do you want to merge with your light body? And we say yes. Now, when it happened to me, my light body voice, so to speak, started telling me and showing me how when the light body is merged with the human aspect, that there is no possibility of disease, affliction. You have regeneration. I mean, it was showing me with images and so on, and I really got it. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the thing with the higher self. I was told at that point, and I said, okay, well, this is easy. That means I don't have to go to the dentist. I don't have to go to the doctor. What? And basically, the answer was yes, and that the only true veil was the veil keeping me from believing that this is actually happening. Powered by my imagination and my connection to that unseen thing, I'm experiencing bodily sensations, and I can feel it. I can feel something at a minimum. And I really feel like this type of personal connection, like you said, being in that room and all you got is yourself, is the key. It's like almost like the last place we've gone and the last place we want to look is the New Earth Gateway, or however you want to put it.
So, about the physical body part, I was nauseous one time, and I know that you can take away ailments, or as hypnotists in the 1800s call it, complaints. And so my complaint was, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I laid down and I started breathing, and I imagined that I was breathing in just light into my stomach, just more and more light. Within about 2, 3 minutes, I was completely fine, more energized than I'd been the whole day. That's just one example. There's in our physiology, there's a nerve called the vagus nerve,
Yeah.
and it controls all of the chemical secretions. And if a person's in a theta or alpha brainwaves, in a theta or alpha brainwave state from hypnosis or whatever other state or whatever way to induce that state, you can essentially open all the chemical banks. And that includes the thymus, which is called the fountain of youth for a reason. So when people open their heart chakra, they're opening 1,400 different chemicals, according to Joe Dispenza. But I actually tested it while hypnotizing a person. I didn't intentionally do this, but previous to my hypnotizing them, they had been snoring every single night for like 3 or 4 years, and they had really really messed up sinuses. And I don't know what why it is that I did it, but I felt an impulse to, in a sense, cleanse their breath while they were hypnotized. And I imagined that I was pulling it out of them, and they like coughed and then looked at me like, what the hell did you just do? And then fast forward to the next day, they wake up, they come wake me up. They're like, bro, I know this is something so simple as breathing, but you changed my life, bro. I can breathe again. It's like I couldn't do it for the longest time. And he starts tearing up, and I'm like, damn, I didn't realize I helped you that much. But it's like our bodies are naturally in homeostasis,
Yeah.
but because our circumstances are not natural anymore, we're naturally out of homeostasis.
Right. I equate it to anyone, and many of us have, anyone who's ever been in a relationship with narcissistic frequencies. Let's put it that way. So when you're dealing with, and it doesn't have to be necessarily even have to be narcissistic. It could be a child who's upset. But if the other person, if that mirror is only able to communicate irrationally, it's not going to listen to any rationality. So often what I experienced in my life, and I've observed others when I hear their stories, they start to, and you see this a lot in toxic relationships, the one who's, let's just say, more stable, more balanced, more sane, starts to communicate in the language of the other, which is an irrational, endless loop. And I see that as the what you said earlier about the Stockholm syndrome. If we look at the collective, what have we been fed? We've been told what to watch. We've been told what to take and eat and ingest and smoke and drink, and the ethics, the morals, all this stuff has been given to us as if we're too stupid to make our own choice. So this is, you said earlier, I forget how you used it, but I think it was close to what we're talking about, this growing up. I mean, it's about growing up, right? And, I asked Morgan years ago, as she was telling me her story, downloading this stuff for 20 years. I said, you mean to tell me that you were downloading the Ascension? Like what's happening today? She said, yeah. But she said, but they never used that word. They always said growing up.
And we're in a spiritual infancy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly right. Oh, gosh. So I made this video recently, and I'm going to be uploading just the story part of it because there's a lot of random stuff in it that leads up to create a big climax, and it's a very important story that I tell at the end. It's about a character named Bob. It's a story about regret, and it goes through a simulation of a person's life, and essentially it shows how a person, on the day-to-day person, neglects their dreams for whether it's acceptance or people, just all the things that you might want in a material experience. People neglect their dreams because of that, and on their deathbed they have regret. And so it's a story about regret, and it's a dialogue between a person and their higher self in the moment of a life review. And that's like the video, and it forces the person to, not forces, but through question and dialogue, causes the person to see that they were, one, holding themselves back from their dreams and doing it because they didn't want to face their suffering. Two, causing themselves to become bitter and hateful towards the world because they really didn't acknowledge what they actually wanted. And three, becoming a victim, saying it was completely outside of themselves because it was really all their choice. Yeah. And so that all ties into the ascension thing, if you want to call it that. It's what's going to happen when you're dying and your soul or higher self or God, whatever you want to call it, is there, and you have to face the music. What's going to happen then? It's that type of video, and it just reminded me of that. I don't know why.
Well, it's over the last several weeks, I've heard a lot of people talking about, Morgan talked about it, she wrote about it, but other people too, talking about these deaths, right? These ego deaths, these life reviews, people coming up and their faces in front of you, and you see you're seeing other perspectives, and it's a life review type of energy, and there seems to have been a lot of that lately going on, and to me that represents, um, to your point, what happens when we physically transition. People have written about this in NDEs and ODEs. You have a life review, and so that energy, looking at it as energy, to me, it means like preparing for, like a more pure reality. Like if I have amnesia, or if I have certain belief systems in place that aren't even real, this life review is going to bring me the clarity that I need to step into a higher dimension or a higher frequency or vibrational field, whether it be out of this body or in this body. And I actually think what's happening for us, at least the opportunity, is that we're actually reaching a point where we can actually transcend as a species death in the human sense, where we can actually uh, be in a field of experience and consciousness that might have once been reserved for near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, or what occurs after physical death.
So about near-death experiences, actually, I've pulled a person out of one.
Hmm.
I stopped a person from overdosing, and their heart was stopped, and they were essentially not breathing, and they were dead. And I revived them, and they started punching me and cursing at me, like, "Why the fuck did you bring me back?" Blah blah
I
blah.
didn't want to
And
come
like,
back.
and they were like actually cussing at me, and I was just like, "Damn!" So that's how good it is there, huh? That's the type of music they have there, huh? But
Hmm.
about like preparation and how there's a lot of mini deaths in a way, or psychological or ego death. That's another part of that's in that video that I was talking about. But recently in September of 2020, my grandfather actually passed, and every single time I'd see him, I'd always talk to him about the astral plane, and I'd be like, "So Gramps, let me tell you a little secret. When you die, this is what you're going to experience." And I didn't know he was going to die. He was in great health, perfect health. And
Right.
I was like, Gramps, so it's going to be kind of strange. There's this thing called a life review. Keep in mind, he's agnostic. So this guy's like not really wanting to, not religious in any way,
Right.
not spiritual, but just kind of doesn't want to have to put up with the figuring out what's real or what's not real. And so after probably a couple months of me doing that, talking to him about the astral plane, about hypnosis, random different stuff like that, he kind of sort of opens up. He's like, he explained to me that it's not that he's afraid to die, it's that he is more so curious what happens after. And
Right.
then the last day I saw him, I even told him, I said, Gramps, remember, I got to hypnotize you before you die. And then I never got to hypnotize him, and he died like 2 days later. So
Oh,
that was kind of fucked up. But I
dude,
don't know.
I don't know what just happened, but I get these certain sensations in my body. I just got a huge one on the masculine side running up my leg into my chest. I'm not suggesting anything. I know to acknowledge these things when they happen in synchronicity. But I had a out of body experience. I don't know if there's any difference really, is there? But as a near death, but I got shot out of my body. I was on an airplane, 37 years old. And then I found myself in this clearing with this very tall figure, ended up being an angel, big gold wings. I can remember it to this day. The communication was telepathic. But what you're talking about, what I experienced and what I've heard many others talk about, it's beyond words. It's this place, this space, this feeling of peace and love. And we could give all these words to it and they won't even do it justice. So number one, I can see why your friend was punching you on his way back in. And number two, it tells me that, in fact, I talked to a friend of mine 3 or 4 days ago that I hadn't talked to in 12 years, that I grew up with, that we had conversations like this in sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, went to college together. And he was telling me that he had had a seizure, and he had totaled his car, and he just didn't have hardly a scratch on him, but he left his body. Now, in his case, he was having a conversation with a voice, right? And I've heard people talk about that. and all this clarity and all this unity consciousness came in, and the event came and went, but it's affected his life to the nth degree. And I think that frequency, that vibrational field, is available to us here. The only thing that's really standing in the way, as I was told 2 nights ago, is the only veil that's actually there, which is the veil of how I see myself from my own eyes. Because as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So I'm ready to see you walking on water, so I could be the second one. I've got more conditioning to do it before you do it.
So about conditioning and all that, I actually wrote down recently a list inspired by y'all from the Waves of Light conference, writing all the polarities and all the negative attributes that an individual might have. I wrote 5 pages for fears and like a bunch of different like shames and guilts and griefs and all that type of stuff, and then just burned it. But about that place that is indescribable, I tattooed a reminder of it on my arm, and it says, "There is nothing I'm fighting, not even myself."
There's nothing I'm fighting, not even myself.
There's nothing I'm fighting, not even myself. Yeah. And to me, it's absolute peace. It's like reunification. It's like Heros Gamos on like a cosmic level. And really, I feel like the caveat in this whole experience, the human story, the waking up to this information, whether you're born with the knowledge, the remembrance of it, or you just find it midlife, it is a catalyst for you to look at yourself, to then take a step back and choose that which creates more deliberately, or that which you desire more. Because in the end, we're creators, and people don't like that fact. A lot of times they want to just be able to be created for or be led, like what somebody in the comment says. Yeah. And it's just about taking that seat and closing your eyes and visualizing, what do I want? Well, yeah. It's not about always visualizing. It's about actually being it after that. Yeah. To taking it here, bringing it now.
That's right. Yeah, because you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I can tell you whatever I want to tell you. And it may be very accurate in the context of the conversation. You know, this is a process to get to this point, or, you know, you can do this to get to this point. But until you experience it, it doesn't register. And the only way to experience it is to be it. So if I'm really going to experience, you know, for instance, and this is a hard one for people, behind every child or person that is sexually violated, there is a person who went through those actions for a reason. What happened to them? Like,
what happened to their abuser?
That's what I mean. What happened to the abuser? Was the abuser abused before they became an abuser? I mean, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, we think, well, I can tap in to anything that's available. We can call it the Akashic record. You can call it your past memories, your future progressions, but we can also tap into everything in the human experience. Now, this isn't some bullshit compassion. This is about tapping in to infinite intelligence in a physical mirror of yourself, or someone that's incarnated on this earth. Like, you know, why did Hitler do what I mean, there's all these things. There's information in there that we don't always tend to look at because it's not pretty to look at. Or in some cases, we feel like that's a done deal. They're a piece of shit or whatever, and I don't need to look that way. We got to remember, everything's coming from the same place. Mm-hmm. So we're not really dealing with something that was mysteriously made out of nowhere outside the field of the god goddess. We're actually dealing with a consciousness that looked at the perfection of its creation and said, I think we can do that better than God. So we're going to ethnic cleanse, or we're going to depopulate the world and choose these certain ethnicities, or what, you know, or vaccine or whatever. I mean, I think everything is such a paradox that in the metaphorical sense of the word, we're both the highest of angels and the most fallen of souls. We represent everything. And so, you know, back to what you said earlier and what Morgan pulled in last night, which was phenomenal, that the higher self, the higher aspect comes into the most extreme cases of duality, the most extreme, decadent, dirty places from an energetic level, no matter what that looks like on the surface, so that they can then bring that duality back to the center, right?
And that's because good and evil are a human dream. They're ways we can understand and interpret. It's like from the soul level, the god or goddess level, it doesn't really make a difference. It's just further ripening of the fruit of consciousness. And that's a terrible way to look at it if you're a person that's going through it in the moment and you're sitting there sitting across from your abuser in court. If anybody tells you that, you're going to have instant hatred, and that's a natural reaction at that moment. But from the fundamental source God level, that's all it can be explained as. And people have done terrible things in the name of good in the past, and they will continue to do so, and there will always be people that abuse power. But it's realizing that the person or the thing that looks through every single human's eyes and experiences every single thing is not separate. It's pretty much one soul, just growing. And I feel like there's going to be an event within our lives that it's like an amalgamation of all this and like a synthesis. And whether people call it ascension, people call it like the 0 point field, people call it a million different things. But until we're there, or rather until we're now, we'll never be there.
Till we're now. Yeah. Yeah, that's what my big thing was when I woke up today. Why wait? Why do we have to wait? That's just a fucking program. You know, even these, and I'm not knocking anybody, but these predictions of 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm like, well, what? Wait a minute. You know, we're the ones that are creating this. And so it's one thing to go, oh, we're the ones that are creating this, but like you said, it's another thing to put it into motion and to be that. And then and NOW is a big part of that. Now is really all of that. Because if I'm stuck on anything in the past, obviously I'm not present. And if I'm looking at, oh, well, the big event's going to come next year, or the financial reset's going to come next year, or you know,
Nasara Jasara.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Humans are addicted to save salvation. I love the psychology of addiction because we find the purpose of the. Sorry, I feel like we've gone over time.
No, we're good. That was a reminder for me.
So the ego, the only reason that the ego exists is to perpetuate how it views itself. And so if a person thinks a certain thought, feels a certain way, has a certain perspective, that person inherently gets addicted to that, at least chemically. And because of that, we have certain tracks that our thought trains go on. And if you get enough people to feel a certain way, to think a certain thought, to do a certain thing, we have infinite hordes of for lack of a better word, sheeple. And from that, it's kind of like we're in a dance of self-sabotage and self-illumination that if we lead by example, which is incredibly difficult to do, especially when one is in trauma themselves, whatever it is that a person can glean off of you will further their experience. And I want to thank you for having me on these past couple times, and just I've used your what you spoke about at the Waves of Light conference, the polarities and just various perspectives, and even Hyros Gamos, understanding that one is unifying themselves with themselves if they experience right here and right now is understanding the several thousand-year-old Chinese philosophy of Taoism or Buddhism or whatever other form of belief system it is. It's you and you.
That's
and
right.
You have to open the heart and the mind to experience that.
That's right. So imagine a world where everyone, or even a community, where everyone handles their own shit, where nobody um, furthers the possibility that they won't or that they're not capable of. I mean, we're all we have all these universal seeds, and if we put them in human terms that anyone can understand, one of those might be the seed of narcissism. Now, I don't consider myself a narcissist, but do I have narcissistic frequencies? Have I displayed that in my past? It's okay for me, but not you. I mean, we've all been there, and so a part of what to me makes the most sense, that to thine own self be true, is stay in my own lane, mind my own effing business, work on me, because me is a tuning fork. Now, me, I don't have to go and preach, and I don't have to go and instruct. I can just be what you just said, which is an example through the living, breathing example of, walking the walk. And it's so crazy because we think all these complicated things got to happen when it's these very simple, profound truths that that are founded on love, honor, respect, and reverence of that which is all, and at the individual level, the fractal level, responsibility, self-responsibility, self-accountability as a divine co-creator, a conscious co-creator, you know, as opposed to, being drunk and disorderly and running around like a bull in a china shop.
And what's important about to take that accountability or responsibility is realizing human nature is hypocrisy. And and we have to we can always judge, examine, point out, realize whatever coming to awareness modality you have. You're gonna have to realize at some point that that which you condemn is within yourself.
Exactly.
And so people are like, I'm
That's
higher than
exactly
thee.
right, man.
I have the truth. I have the truth.
Exactly right.
I know it's absolute. What do you
Man,
know?
I remember being on the streets and for those first couple of years and running into people, and I was in victimhood. I mean, I was at a certain level of victimhood, and then each day, like you said, what did you say a minute ago? Self sabotage and self illumination at the same time. That's the path I was on. But I would run into people, all kinds of people, and and then it would come in like, dude, do you really think you got it as bad as this person here? And I'd be like, no, no. And then it started to flip as I guess overcame my prejudices, my superiority, and my fear. I would sit down and break bread with these people. I'm talking crackheads, meth heads, people that are thrown out of asylums, psychiatric hospitals because they wouldn't have them anymore. A lot of those prostitutes and pimps and petty thieves and once I started to talk to them, that was when I started to find oneness. But as long as I stood over here and looked at them at the other end of the bus stop and said, wow, that dude looks pretty rough and he's talking to himself or he's talking to something that's not there, I was an armchair quarterback, as they say in sports. So again, going back to what you said, which I think is for me the best part of this show has been, it's about being that, not just talking about it, but actually being that. And that actually doesn't take any explanation to be that which we are. It takes some action and certainly the dominion over our thoughts, which doesn't mean I'm not going to have a bad thought pop in. But what I have learned over the last few weeks is when these thoughts pop in, it's a lot like a meditation. Why wouldn't it be? I can go pull it back. Alt Control Delete. Boom, you're gone. It just means you're not in my sandbox anymore. I'm creating a new sandbox. And by virtue of this new expanded, better sandbox, more illuminated sandbox, the whole world benefits. And I think that's really what it gets down to is when I can serve myself, and in that reverent act, I am actually equally serving my brothers and sisters in all humanity. You know, it's not like it is a win-win-win. That is the sacred geometric computation that God's not going to budge off of, even if we can't understand it.
I feel like the greatest honor anything in the universe could do is incarnate, because to willingly enmesh oneself in the filth of um, what we experience in human nature, it 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 comes down to fear, really. What are you not willing to look at that is making you do things that are self-sabotaging and holding you and the person you could be back? And so inherently, what is your action causing in others from your own lack of changing the person that you could changing to the person that you could be? And it's all about those little ripple effects, because if the mind is dictated by emotion, and the thoughts that you have are pushed by that emotion, it takes more energy to take a step back, like you said, and realize that it's not the thought that you're having that's good or bad. It's the lack of space in between. It's kind of like you're not really choosing. You're just going with what's already there. It's like you turn on the TV. You don't really choose what you're watching. It's just there. Or you can turn off the TV and realize what you actually want to do. Yeah. And so facing fear is a very difficult thing that most people cannot do, because they don't want to see themselves. And if they see themselves as they are, the way that they thought they were is shattered and the illusion is broken.
That's where those life reviews and little deaths come in, which is a good sign. We'll leave with that and your thoughts on this. But if you're confused, if you're hurting a little bit, if you find yourself stepping into certain cycles of distraction, and you're conscious of it, and you continue to consciously be the desire to expand, you're on the right path. That's just my take. Because
you're absolutely correct.
Because if you think everything's hunky-dory and you got all the fucking answers, I mean, I've gone down that road. It doesn't work for you.
Pride is the greatest of all 7 deadly sins.
You got any last words? We have to do this again soon.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Final words, folks. Garin, Zina on YouTube. To leave you with the final note, a positive note. All of this delirium, this madness, this chaos, the crazy shit you see on the human plane, no matter what fucked up stuff happened, it's not as bad as what's already happened. Like, if you really know human history, you know that this is just a little smudge, and we're going to have a crazy, amazing renaissance pretty soon. We're preparing for the biggest renaissance in all history.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
And I'm excited for it. God bless every person.
Yeah, and I'm excited to collaborate with you further. I'm going to reach out to you on some other things I've talked about in the past in the next week or two. I got you.
About that, one last little thing about art specifically. I know you're a very creative and artistic person. I've taken a step back from my normal type of YouTube videos, and I've created more artistic videos. And I'm really, I kind of like the idea of like storytelling and like metaphors and allegories and all that. And I've created a new creative type of expression, and I just kind of want to talk with you about that off air sometime. So yeah,
that's
definitely.
Cool. Well, I'm planning on. I'm going to be probably be after next weekend, after this coming weekend. Yeah, I've got some, and what you just described is exactly what I'm feeling. So here we are, telepathically merging and converging. Yeah, but definitely tell your mom and dad I say hello, and all blessings to all you over there.